Hi, my name is Tasha Braden, and I am a single mom. I have 5 children. My oldest 2 sons are adults, and I have 3 in the home with me. My family origin, culturally, I do not know a lot of information on either side. I know that on my paternal side, my grandfather migrated from Greece, came to America, settled on the East Coast. I believe he came in to New York and somehow worked his way to the West Coast. My maternal side, I do not have a lot of information on. However, I know that they were settlers in the east side of America, somewhere along the lines of Illinois, and migrated to the West Coast on the side with Idaho and settled in Idaho, built a family there, and came down to California. This is my paternal side of the family. Here you see my grandfather, who married my grandma, Laura. Together, they had 6 children. They had 5 boys and 1 girl. They ended up divorced, and my grandfather married a woman named Kathy, who he stayed married to until he passed away. So this is the side of the family who came from Greece. My grandpa on this side was the family who settled in the east states, which was somewhere around Illinois. I know there was a few states back there that they talked about living in. I do not have a lot of history on that, but my grandfather ended up migrating over, settling in Idaho, and he had married my mother's biological mom, Constance, who together they had 3 children and ended up divorced. Then my grandfather married Ramona, and together Ramona had 5 children of her own. Together they had 3, so they had quite a variety of children with many different personalities. In Idaho, my grandfather built his dream. He was an entrepreneur. He was a rancher. He ranched horses. So he had a horse ranch, and together they built a restaurant that was called the Mona Lynn. Because my grandfather, his name was Daniel Lynn and Ramona, so they called it the Mona Lynn, which I thought was a beautiful name. It's a beautiful story, and I love that one of the family's strengths and dynamics that I have on both sides is entrepreneurship, as well as faith, courage, and family. They both had a very strong family dynamic with a value of family and interconnectedness. My grandpa and grandma, when they had the ranch and the restaurant, all of the children worked. So it was told to me that the males were the ranch hands, while the females worked in the restaurant, although they did both share duties. Somehow you can see the variety of the different individuals, which I'm going to share the key with you. In the key, here we have a secret affair. This represents male, female, female with cancer, male with cancer, a male who was murdered, a female who has neurological disorders such as Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. This one represents alcohol abuse. We have a deceased male, a deceased female, male with substance abuse, female with substance abuse, estranged relationships, very close, cut off, and caretaker. So when I think about a model to use, I consider the satir model. To me, I believe that the satir model would reflect properly for both sides of the family, especially my maternal side of the family, being that there is all-encompassing factors in the satir model. One of the strategies that I would work through for an intervention would be the iceberg. I believe that taking each individual through the various layers of their own personal functioning would be supportive in their roles. I think that these individuals have a very creative value, and that they would appreciate that they are in control of their own journey, as they tended to gravitate towards more free lifestyles. It was said that these individuals struggled harshly with substance abuse, which is what this gray line represents here. This man here was my Uncle Ricky. Ricky was actually imprisoned for his substance abuse, and eventually he was killed in prison, sadly. I was not close with this side of the family, as when they settled in California, my mom was sober-minded and a faith-filled woman, as she grew up in church, being taken by her neighbor. Her siblings together grew up in church. Her step-siblings and half-siblings decided to dabble in drugs. When I consider the satir model, I think that I would love to do the family sculpting with this portion of the family, because I think that if they have a strong enough value for family and connectedness, they do all have faith. They were Christians, faith-filled believers, although they struggled in substance abuse. So I think that using the family sculpting, each individual would be able to see where they played a part in the downfall of their selves, in their individuality and substance abuse. You can see, if you were to take their body posture, where was dad at in this scenario? Where was mom at? And my mother was going to church with her sibling. So they would be able to visually see and connect to what they were doing in the family, how they were playing a role, and I think it would be transformative for them. Here you can see my father's side of the family was the side that migrated from Greece. They settled somewhere along New York and somehow migrated to the West Coast as well. This side of the family, to me, cognitively seemed to be more cognitively healthy, whole, although I still think that the satir model would be great for them as well. My grandpa John married my grandma Laura, and together they had 6 children. My father, my Uncle David, Steve, Daniel, Ted, and Jan. Grandpa John divorced Laura and married Kathy, who they stayed married. Together, these children mostly stayed cognitively well. However, we had many of these individuals who served in our military. My father served in the Army Reserves. My Uncle David served, I don't remember which branch. Steve was a fighter pilot in Vietnam. Daniel was in the Navy, and I think that's all there was. When my grandma passed away, it was said that my Uncle Ted and my Aunt Jan found that there was a secret affair and both of them had a different father. So that's what this represents right here. Although there was secrets, and my Uncle Danny, after coming home into the civilian world, leaving his military service, ended up with PTSD and mental health disorders. And eventually he was killed. And I don't know a lot about that history, but I know that my family was very close and was very hurt by that tragedy. Together, my dad met my mom and had 3 children. This is me here. I married my ex-husband, Brian, who I'll talk about in a minute. My parents also had my sister, Teresa, and my sister, Wendy. My sister, Teresa, there's an interesting dynamic. She and I were close. However, she was 13 years older than me. She got married to Russ, and Russ struggled with substance abuse. They divorced, but together they had 2 children, a male and a female. And the female, my niece, is married. Teresa ended up marrying Destry, who she's still married to. My sister, Wendy, married Jeff. Together they had 4 beautiful daughters. And you can see by the dotted line, which was in the key, sorry, I forgot to mention that, means that this household is still living together. So all of them currently live together. However, my niece Anya just graduated and she's in college, so she may be departing. My ex-husband and I together had 5 children. We had 4 sons and 1 daughter. This triangle again represents fraternal twins, which I had Elijah and Nathaniel. You can see by the dotted line that my twins, Elijah and Nathaniel, as well as Neva, still live with me. These lines right here represent that we are very close. I was very close with my father. My father was a wonderful man. He was very stable in the home, present and engaged. My mother as well was very engaged in the family. However, we weren't as close because my mother did struggle with her emotions. I believe she has some mental health that was undiagnosed. My mother also was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, pre-onset Alzheimer's. So when my father passed away, you can see here that he has passed away. My sisters and I, you can see by these lines with the arrows, became the caretaker of my mother. After caring for my mother, we chose to place my mother in a memory care facility where my mother still resides. This side of the family, we were never that close with. We were always at a little bit of an estranged relationship. You can see by the dotted lines. And after the passing of my mother, that relationship became more estranged. Whereas this side of the family, who had more emotional wellness and wholeness, we stayed connected and still have thriving relationships. My sisters and I, after the passing of our parents, we became very close as we had to come together and caretake for my mom and be supportive of each other's roles. And we are still very connected. All of us do have the same family values of Christianity, faith, family, and love. And we choose to connect and keep that dynamic strong. With that said, that's a basic synopsis of my family of origin, and I hope you appreciated it. Have a good day. Bye.